Tyler Suiters, Clean Skies News.
Joining us now for more perspective on this Buy American proposal is Dr. Margo Thorning. She is Chief Economist at the American Council for Capital Formation. Margo, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Now, this is not only about wind. This could impact other industries, solar and other renewable industries as well?
That's right. It could impact all sorts of reconstruction projects, infrastructure projects. So the proposal that the Senator has introduced to require even private sector projects to buy American, I think we need to think very carefully about, because there are already provisions in last year's stimulus bill requiring us to buy American. And remember that when we put tariff barriers up against our competitors' products, they put barriers up against ours. Exports are a big part of the American economy and have been responsible for helping the recession not be any worse than it has been. So when we go down that path of Buy American, I think we have to think about what are the unintended consequences.
Well, others would say, how does it help the U.S. taxpayer to actually fund jobs overseas? What's the upside for the U.S. taxpayer? Well,
the question is, if, for example, a wind project is unable to get parts from a domestic manufacturer because they can't meet the production or they don't have the technical skills, then that project for wind or for some other project simply won't go forward, and so you won't get the jobs created anyway. Furthermore, if the cost of the product from the imported country is much cheaper than what we can provide here, think about the fact that we will have the taxpayer dollars will get less bang for the buck. We could get more if we allowed ourselves to purchase, say, the blades from another country.
But if this happens, isn't it the U.S. building up industries in other countries?
Well, the U.S. is, in general, responsible for a large part of world trade, and to the extent we close our borders to imports from our trading partners like China, India, South Korea, we're going to narrow our own markets. So I think many jobs here in the U.S. are in the export sector. For example, Boeing is a huge exporter, and the movie industry is another example. So I think we want to be careful that, because all the economic studies over the last 30 years have shown that countries with open borders and low tariffs tend to experience faster productivity growth and grow faster.
Well, this proposal isn't trying to stop the other projects. They're just saying if it's a project that involves the foreign manufacturers, if they're valuable, they should go forward. They just shouldn't get stimulus funds.
Well, I think it would be a good to slow down this process toward Buy American, because it isn't clear that the overall job growth will be faster if we end up not able to fund as many wind farm projects, for example, because the cost of the blades or the delay because we're relying only on American suppliers. That's not going to stimulate job growth here.
But you actually believe it will hurt it?
I believe it could slow it, because other countries are already retaliating against the Buy American provisions that were in the economic stimulus bill that passed last year. So that means our goods go out and face higher tariff barriers in other countries. There are going to be fewer jobs in the export industries here because other countries aren't asleep at the switch.
So that will slow the U.S. industry
That will
as well.
slow U.S. industry in general. I think it's like you have to think of the whole picture, not just a small piece of it.
And what about an impact on prices?
Well, I think certainly requiring the purchase of U.S.-made goods will tend to increase the prices, and that means you can buy fewer, you can buy less steel, you can buy fewer turbines or blades. So if we're really interested in accelerating renewable energy, as well as infrastructure projects, we ought to be open to getting the lowest cost materials.
So you believe that AWEA, the American Wind Energy Association, has a point that even though the domestic manufacturers want more of this stimulus funds, this is good for the foreign companies and good for American
Yes,
firms.
and I think general economic analysis over the last several decades backs that up.
So these senators want the president to suspend the stimulus clean energy program. What's the likelihood that these Democratic leaders can actually block renewable energy funds from going overseas?
If I had to bet, I would guess not, because there's so many other senators whose states depend on exports, and so I think there will be a very thoughtful discussion in the Senate about the wisdom of that proposal.
All right, well, we'll see where it goes. Dr. Margo Thorning, thank you so much for joining us from the American Council for Capital Formation. We appreciate your insight. Thank you.